I've been talking about fire as an element of spirituality, right? And as we go into the next season, the baptism of Jesus, and then move into the next season, we'll be touching on water a little deeper, and we'll be touching on stones. But today we're going to stick with fire. And I pointed out we've got the firelight and the candlelight there, and we've talked about fire as Moses encountered that flaming, burning bush, right? And that was an odd thing to hear about Moses during Advent, but he was almost a type of Christ and prophesying to, God's Son coming in some ways. And we've heard now the prophet Isaiah, and we've heard the burning fire where clothes that are war clothes and saturated with blood, those will all be burned because that won't exist anymore once this child comes to us. So I want to talk about this. I need to know if you remember not long ago that we used to send out birth announcements. Like, you remember the real paper, tangible, snail mail birth announcements, right? Yeah. There was something about it, right? Okay, yeah, we can still do it, technology, Instagram, Twitter, throw it on Facebook, but there's something about sharing the birth of a new baby in a family, old school style on real paper. And it always, what did it contain? It had information on it, right? Specific information. What does a birth announcement usually contain? Yes, the name, the length, the what? The weight, yes, the gender, right? It's a boy, it's a girl. But yeah, those are some pretty important things, kind of the basics, right? And precious time was taken to select just the perfect paper and the design. And usually, if you got real fancy, included that real slick, kind of clear, transparent vellum, right? And if you got real jazzy on it, you could do ribbon, right? To make it extra special for when the recipient opened it. And new parents would get them in the mail as soon as they could, or at least once the fog of not sleeping for days, weeks, and months waned, right? Slowly lifted. Well, today we send e-cards or share with family, like I said, on Facebook or Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat, but birth announcements were pretty important even a long time ago, thousands of years, hundreds of years. In our Old Testament reading that Dick shared this morning, we are privy to this birth announcement, but not just any birth announcement, a royal birth announcement from the prophet Isaiah. And this passage strikes me a bit odd. I don't know if it strikes you a bit odd, because most parents send birth announcements after the birth of their baby, right? After the birth. But Isaiah sends this announcement out some 700 years before the kid is even conceived. Pretty interesting, right? Pretty interesting. Well, the prophet Isaiah delivered this message to the people of Israel while they were facing the threat from political and militant superpowers in the day, the nation of Assyria, which, yes, right on, you got that. Eventually, the enemy would destroy the northern kingdom, and then it would hold many of those Israelites in captivity. Not slavery, but captivity, which is a little different. But even in the darkest hour for the chosen people of God, the great prophet Isaiah addressed this abysmal situation by offering an ember of hope, promising the coming of a future king who would rock this planet. Now, if you caught it, there were some pretty hefty titles that this king, this person that would come to save Israel, had on his shoulders. The government shall be upon his shoulders in Isaiah 9. Of the increase of his government and of peace there will be no end. And the throne of David and over his kingdom. So no end to his reign. Isaiah 9:6 and Isaiah 9:7. And then in Luke's gospel, we overhear another announcement of the same king. The Lord will give to him the throne of his father David, and he will reign over the house of Jacob forever, and of his kingdom there will be no end. And that's in Luke chapter 1, 32 and 33. So let's be clear, this kid has some very specific names, and not just one, but 4. Do you remember what they are? Wonderful Counselor, right? Mighty God, Everlasting Father, yep, and Prince of Peace. Because guess what? One name wasn't enough for this child, this very special individual. Moreover, these names tell of his very character and how he will reign. Now, let's bring it to present day. Imagine getting a birth announcement, whether it's in the real mail, snail mail, or email, or however you get it, and it reads like this. It's got the name of the child, and it's got the length, and the weight, and the gender, right? And it says, excellent chess player, or Olympic gymnast. How about this? Future CEO of a Fortune 500 company, or astronaut in training. Like, that would be absolutely ridiculous, wouldn't it? You'd be going, what? Because birth announcements don't list accomplishments, do they? That's because there are none to list at that early stage in life. But this child was different. This child is different. Wonderful Counselor indicates this king will be a supernatural source of extraordinary wisdom. Wonderful for those who need counseling. Mighty God, telling of divine strength and power, strong and powerful. Mighty news for those who are weak, or at least perceived as weak. Everlasting Father, sharing that this king will care for his people forever as a divine father cares for his children. Everlasting news for those who feel least, lost, and lonely. Finally, the last name and title for this young king, Prince of Peace, points out that this ruler will bring deep well-being and right relationships. Peaceful news for all of us who lack shalom with God and with one another. As we move toward the coming of Christmas, yes, we inched ever so slightly forward. In the darkness of our own world, we look for light to shine in our lives. And this great light that shined on the people who walked in darkness so many years before Jesus was even born. Those who lived in a land of deep overwhelm, grief, loss, depression, shined. It shone and it shines on us today. And we know this light as the light of the Christ in our lives and in our world. As the gospel writer of John tells us, this light with a capital L, existed as word or logos from the very beginning of everything. And this word was with God, and this word was God. And we know that all things came into being through him, and without him, not one thing came into being. This light, and I love this one word, this light brings life to all people. All people, say it with me, all people. One more time. All people, and shines so that the darkness can never overcome it. We know this light. The child who has been born for us, a son given to us, authority rests upon his shoulders, and his name is Wonderful Counselor, right? Mighty God, Everlasting Father, and Prince of Peace. His authority shall grow continually, and there shall be endless peace for the throne of David and his kingdom. He will establish and uphold it with justice and with righteousness from this time onward and forevermore. And you know what? Isaiah was right. God made good on God's promise. Jesus was born hundreds of years later and fulfilled every promise announced. God came to us. God came among us in the person of Jesus. He took on flesh in order to give us wisdom, protection, fatherly, parental care, and peace as we enter into relationship with him. And we look forward to the coming of this light, welcoming him into our lives so that we can hold this light in our world for others to see. So this morning, here with you on this amazing fourth Sunday in Advent, the morning of Christmas Eve, I say, all thanks and glory and honor and power be to this special child, named Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace, the light in the darkness, now and forever. And all of God's people together say, Amen.